This is an NBC News special report. Crisis in Moscow.
Журналистов отвечали исполняющий обязанности президента СССР Геннадий Янович.
It says that Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev is no longer exercising his duties.
August 19th, 1991. The day the Earth stood still just for another moment. The period in time when Gennady Yanayayev and his Gang of Eight briefly took power in an attempt to preserve the Soviet Union for just a little bit longer. This is the Soviet Coup, and we're going to be talking about it today. Всем привет и добро пожаловать, or should I say, hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel, Fun with Flags in History. Меня зовут Frank, or my name is Frank, and today is a very important week. Or rather, today is a very important start of a very important week. As 30 years ago, a coup d'etat was attempted in Moscow by hardliners who grew frustrated with reformer Mikhail Gorbachev. The coup had consequences that eventually led to the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics dissolving on December 25th, 1991. As the week goes on, I will discuss the coup and the events surrounding it. But first, let us discuss the events that led to the coup being declared.
Проводил в последний путь Константина Устиновича.
March 10th, 1985. General Secretary Konstantin Chernenko passes away from congestive heart failure at the age of 73 after slipping into a coma earlier that day. He had also suffered from emphysema as he was a heavy smoker that had started this terrible habit at the age of 9 years old. Andrei Gromyko, the then foreign minister of the USSR, had suggested that Mikhail Gorbachev, a secretary within the Central Committee and younger face within the Communist Party, be elected to the position of General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, with Gromyko's suggestion carrying weight in the Politburo. A vote was made on the decision. Gorbachev had initially thought that he would not be selected for the position, but the Politburo had decided to support him, as they had grown tired of electing elderly leaders to the position of General Secretary only to pass away a year or two later. On March 14th, 1985, Gorbachev made his first appearance as elected General Secretary by appearing at Konstantin Chernenko's state funeral, a common tradition for potential successors of past secretaries to do. Chernenko was honored with a state funeral and was buried in the Kremlin Wall necropolis, being the last Soviet leader to do this. Through the years of 1985 to 1989, Gorbachev enacted a series of social and economic reforms that were meant to relax the grip the Communist Party had on the Soviet people, known as the twin policies of glasnost и perestroika. These moves prompted resistance and suspicion on the part of hardline members of the nomenklatura, who were the Soviet bureaucrats that had held political power within the Communist Party. These reforms, while seemingly positive in the mind of Gorbachev, the reformer, they also had a lot of backlash on his behalf that he did not expect. Namely, the nationalist sentiment, which was suppressed by the Soviet government for nearly 70 years. In 1991, the Soviet nation had seen some of the worst it had seen in terms of economic and political issues within the country. Food and other supplies were scarce, as many waited in line for basic supplies such as loaves of bread or cooking oil. Fuel stocks within the USSR were up to 50% less than the estimated need for the approaching winter, and inflation was over 300% per year, with factories lacking in cash needed to pay salaries. The year prior, in 1990, the former Soviet Socialist republics of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, the Baltic states that were taken by force by Stalin's Red Army during the Great Patriotic War, had declared independence from the Soviet Union already. Despite these declarations of independence, there were attempts to return some of these independent SSRs back to the mother country of the USSR and in the sphere of influence of Moscow's Communist Party. First, it happened in Lithuania, with an attempt following a week later in Latvia. Some of these efforts were spearheaded by pro-communist, anti-perestroika forces located in these countries called the Interfront movement. Notably, the one branch in Moldova helped form the breakaway state that we know today as the Pridnestrovyan Moldavian Republic, or PMR for short, better known as Transnistria as well. Another issue that affected the Soviet government at the time was the Russian SFSR, or Soviet Federative Socialist Republic, declaring independence from the Soviet Union. This had not meant the Soviet Union dissolved just yet, but that the Russian SFSR had more governance over itself and began introducing legislation into the country. The issue was how some, if not most of the laws that were introduced in this period contradicted the laws that were in place in the Soviet Union prior to the Russian SFSR's formation as an independent state within the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. This began something that is called in Russia called the War of Laws.
The other 85% is a slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB.
The KGB and other forces had thought of overthrowing Gorbachev as early as 1990. On December 11, 1990, KGB chairman Vladimir Kryuchkov made a call for order over the Moscow program. That day, he asked two KGB officers to prepare a plan of measures that could be taken in case a state of emergency was declared in the USSR. Later, Kryuchkov brought Soviet Defense Minister Dmitry Yazov, Internal Affairs Minister Boris Bogol, Premier Valentin Pavlov, Vice President Gennady Yanayev, Soviet Defense Council Deputy Chief Oleg Baklanov, Gorbachev Secretariat Head Valery Boldin, and Communist Party of the Soviet Union Central Committee Secretary Oleg Shenin into the conspiracy. Some of Gorbachev's closest allies, including the U.S. ambassador to the USSR, Jack F. Matlock, had warned Gorbachev of the coup, but Gorbachev had shrugged the threats off, underestimating his staff, stating that his cabinet was not planning against him. On July 29, 1991, Soviet President Gorbachev, Russian President Boris Yeltsin, and Kazakh President Nursultan Nazarbayev discussed the possibility of reshuffling and replacing some of his current cabinet members with reformers within the party. Kryuchkov, who had placed Gorbachev under close surveillance as Subject 110 several months earlier, eventually caught wind of the conversation from an electronic bug planted by Gorbachev's bodyguard, Vladimir Medvedev. Yeltsin also prepared for a coup by establishing a secret defense committee, ordering military and KGB commands to side with RSFSR authorities, and by establishing a reserve government in Sverdlovsk under Deputy Prime Minister Oleg Lobov.
CNN Weekend continues. I'm Jonathan Mann. We have an extraordinary bulletin that has just come in from the Reuters news agency out of London. Monitoring TASS, the official Soviet news agency, Reuters is now reporting that Soviet Vice President Gennady Vanayev took over as president of the Soviet Union on Monday because of Mikhail Gorbachev's health.
On August 4th, 1991, Gorbachev headed to his dacha in Voros, Crimea, to go on vacation prior to the signing of the new Union Treaty, which, if signed, would have loosened the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics into a looser, more independent union known as the Union of Soviet Sovereign Republics, much more similar to the European Union which exists today, acting as a looser confederation of sorts. Gorbachev had hoped to be there before the signing of the treaty on August 20th, 1991. The treaty came into existence as most of the USSR, with some Soviet Socialist republics and independent states, boycotting the referendum, and they had supported preserving the Soviet Union by approximately 79 to 80%. Anyway, on August 17th, the members of the GKCHP met at a KGB guest house in Moscow and studied the treaty document. They believed the pact would pave the way to the Soviet Union's breakup and decided it was time to act. The next day, Baklanov, Bolden, Shenin, and USSR Deputy Defense Minister General Valentin Verenikov flew to Crimea for a meeting with Gorbachev. Yazov ordered General Pavel Grachev, the commander of the Soviet Airborne Forces, to begin coordinating with KGB Deputy Chairman Viktor Grushko and Yevgeny Agiev to implement martial law. At 4:32 p.m. on August 18th, the GKCHP cut communications to Gorbachev's dacha, including telephone landlines and the nuclear command and control system. 8 minutes later, Lieutenant General Yuri Plekhanov of the 9th Chief Directorate allowed them into Gorbachev's dacha. Gorbachev realized what was happening after discovering the telephone outages. They demanded that Gorbachev either declare a state of emergency or resign and name Yanayev as acting president to allow the members of the GKCHP to restore order in the country. Gorbachev had refused. With Gorbachev's refusal, the GKCHP coordinated with the KGB to keep Gorbachev confined to his Voros dacha, with additional security placed to prevent anyone from leaving the dacha. The members of the GKCHP ordered 250,000 pairs of handcuffs from a factory in Pskov to be sent to Moscow and 300,000 arrest forms. Kryuchkov doubled the pay of all KGB personnel, called them back from holiday, and placed them on alert. The Lefortovo prison was emptied to receive prisoners.